Well, welcome everybody to the Wealth Building Project podcast. I am your host, Markel Blunt, and I'm so excited because I get an opportunity to talk to one of my old friends today, the Gian Verri. John, tell everybody hello.
Hey guys, how are you? Appreciate everybody. Appreciate the community you're building and what you're doing, Markel, for the Wealth Building Project, and definitely looking forward to today's call.
Perfect. I love it. Well, John, let's dive right in. I'm so inspired by you, my friend. I've known you for a long time. Can you just give the audience a little bit about your background, just in terms of where you came from, the work ethic, the things that you've been able to accomplish? If you could just start in the beginning, just give us a flavor for what you do and where you come from.
Yeah, so I think it's interesting that you say that because I would say my beginnings came from, I was the kid who stayed back in first grade, right?
Mm-hmm.
Was a very difficult thing for me. I mean, when you say, hey, look, you asked me where I came from, I look at it and say, that's where I came from. I came from some humble beginnings, I think, and really something that I think gave me a learning experience that was maybe trial by fire, I guess, to an extent,
Mm-hmm.
because my youth was, I was a kid who would get into trouble. I was kind of caught up in mischievous and things. And some people on the outside who don't really know me don't really realize that I was the kid screaming for attention.
Mm.
I get I was lucky. I was fortunate. I came from a household with two loving parents. I've got siblings who still get along. We still get together when we can. We still
Mm-hmm.
communicate. We've got good camaraderie, of course. It's friendship, it's love. But I was the kid who had a chip on his shoulder, right? I was the kid who, I felt like I needed to prove myself. I felt like because I wasn't getting the attention that maybe I thought I could get, or I was the middle child, I wasn't, I felt like the world was against me, I guess, to an extent. And I just thought, geez, something isn't right. I can't get these math problems right.
Mm.
And I would walk up to the teacher and we would have our exam results, or we would have to answer a question. And I just remember waiting in a long line with my other classmates, and all of them would get the check mark as they walked up by the teacher, and she checked off the results of the question we had to answer. And then I'd get there and I'd get the big X. I mean, literally, it was the worst feeling.
What you mean?
And that's when I knew I was going to be held back, because I had to make a trip to the principal's office. And they said, you're a good kid and we know you work hard, but we're going to have to hold you back this year. And that was like the most traumatizing thing for me. So when I look at it, where did I come from? I came from beginnings that were, kind of, it was tough. It was challenging for me. It was a tough beginning. And I felt like right out of the gate when I was a kid, I had to prove myself.
Well, it's funny that adversity, right? And I see this across the board. I've seen it with my youth. I've seen it in sports. I've seen it with a lot of people. You have to go through a little adversity when you think
Yeah.
about those that are achieving great things. Everybody that achieves something great, and that's relative, but and great in terms of their what they want to do and going after and achieving the goals that they set for themselves. It always starts with they've had some sort of adversity somewhere along the way. I was talking to our partner Jeff Venter in another conversation about this, where my experience from Boston Public Schools to the Sudbury Public School system in the third grade, right? And
Yeah.
so I went from an A student in Boston Public Schools to a C, D student overnight.
Yeah.
And I had to go to summer school in hot buildings without air conditioning in the summer in Boston just to try to get caught up, and just feeling inadequate. Like, it was devastating to me that the
Right.
teachers show of hands of, what, like, who knows the answer. And I'm
Yeah.
looking around and everyone's got their hand up. And I'm like,
Yeah.
I don't know what they're talking about. Like,
Mhm.
it was devastating to me. So I understand that. And I do believe that there's something, that chip goes on your shoulder because, you for whatever reason in your head, you're thinking, well, I don't think I'm good enough. Something wrong. I had to stay back. And
Yeah.
so my guess is that obviously my understanding is that you've been able to channel that. We'll
Yeah.
talk to us as you sort of, we got through school, you got into to college. I'm assuming, again, working really hard. We're both at Boston College, which is amazing. And then you got into the working world, right? And so how did you
Yeah.
start to make the transition from, just hardworking kid, hard work with academics, but now you got to do it for real, right? You got to go out and earn a few bucks, and you've been given an opportunity. Tell us about that.
Yeah. So I was very lucky. Again, like I said, I had no clue what I wanted to do when I was in college or when I was getting out of college. I had no clue. Most people really don't know what they want to do. I had felt I put so much pressure on myself through all of my college years because I really wanted to excel in school. I wanted to show the world. My chip on my shoulder in school was about proving to people that I wasn't a stupid kid, right? That I was a kid who could apply myself. And even though I really struggled in school with a lot of the concepts, math concepts, and I was pretty good at writing, pretty good at communicating, but I was challenged with this whole idea that, I could graduate with a 3.0 grade point average, right? I know I could. So I did. I graduated with a 3.2, I think, or 3.1, which for me that was great. But I felt like I had all the pressure up to that point, and I felt like I had nightmares even, up until the point where I graduated. Like, am I going to get that 3.1? That was my goal. That was my objective. So when I had an opportunity to work, all my friends went and worked for JP Morgan and Morgan Stanley and all these big financial services companies. Some went on to be doctors or lawyers and things of that matter. But I ended up taking a sales job. For me, it was taking a sales job where I was making more money landscaping in the summers and painting houses than they were willing to pay me in salary. But it turned out to be one of the best decisions that I made, because what I realized is that in sales, you make money in commission. You don't make money on what they pay. You make money on what you sell. So what you are able to reap in terms of your skills and how you sell is what ultimately becomes your basket, so to speak, the things that you could develop. So I was very lucky in that I was introduced to a concept about moving markets and being involved in sales and what's truly involved in that. And because the best, I guess the best earning opportunities in life, I think early on for me, or for anybody, I think for that matter, would come from people who could be involved in sales and excel at sales, direct selling. Now there's so many forms of selling, as you know.
Right.
You could sell directly, you could sell on the internet, you could bring together communities, you could be, the richest people in the world, so to speak, and have all of the skill sets that you would need to be able to scale yourself and your brand and your concept and your products. But for me, ultimately, it came down to the fact that I took a sales job that wouldn't pay me really anything. And it was nothing in comparison to what some of my other friends and some of my other classmates had. So out of the gate, I felt like maybe I was up against the wall, but it turned out to be the best decision I ever made.
Yeah, look, you've always been a high energy guy, so I would say it was the perfect pair to sort of bring you and sales together, and and not to date us, but we came up in a time where we had to get into the sales job when we had a regular phone versus a cell phone, or the internet, right? We weren't selling that way. You had to call out of the phone book.
Yeah,
There was no internet directory yet. We had to call out of the phone book and get hung up on and yelled at all the time. So we cut our teeth, and I was in a very similar background. I went to Canada, played a little bit there, but it's like, I got to get a real job. I got to get, and I got into a company called Aerotech, and I was a recruiter, man. We were calling people trying to figure out, were they looking for work, because the late 90s with the .com era and Y2K and everything, the unemployment at that time, I think, was at an all-time low. So if you weren't working, you didn't want to be. I mean, there was so much.
That's right.
So we were calling everybody, and trying to get people to work and get people in these temp to perm positions. But it just gave me that that foundation, right, to be able to pick up the phone and make phone calls and do it. Now I'm such a relationship person now. Like, I love making calls, but I don't love making cold calls, man. I want to call people.
Nobody does.
The relationships, that I'm a connector. I love adding value first, and so I figured I got smarter about it. But that's a great story. But let me ask you this. I mean, so as you're growing your business, with Granite, and you're doing your thing, you're making some money, but now you got to find places to put it. Talk to me about like what inspired you to get into alternative forms of investments to start looking at other places to put your money versus just, blowing it on fancy things, that we talked about, others like myself started to do
Sure.
in their 20s. What was the catalyst for you to make that jump and transition to actually be smart with your money?
Right. That's a good question. So I think, and I say this a lot, and I think this is probably the impetus for a lot of the things that I do today and what I'm trying to do in terms of how I think I could give back to the next generation. But with Granite, I was very fortunate because when we started Granite, I was one of the original founders of that company, Granite Telecommunications. And I was lucky because I was part of the original fabric of the organization. And with that came some fruits. Of course, there was an opportunity to be part of the ownership of the business.
Mm-hmm.
And I had an opportunity at that point to invest, but ironically enough, I wasn't really doing a good job in that category. I was more conservative. I was kind of standoffish, if you will, to the idea of investing, where I think I left a lot on the table. And it wasn't until recently, really, like within the last 5 or 6 years, that I realized that I was being way too cautious. I should have been more aggressive in my approach about investing. But investing for me, and why I look at it now in retrospect, when I was in grade school or even younger, I would have wished that I had an opportunity to be involved in investing and what I could do with savings and learning about saving money or storing money so I could use that to allocate towards investments. I just looked at it now in hindsight. I look at it and say I just would have been far better off for myself. I would have been in a position to do more for myself, my family, my community, if I had just had more faith in investing and being able to select the types of investments that I do. So at the end of the day, what I did do, yes, is I did, take what I was earning and I started to invest it. I actually helped start other organizations too, as well. But one of them was one that I was passionate about. There was a real estate concept that I helped co-found back in 2013. And that was a concept that I could relate to because I really felt that giving back to the community was something that was important to me. And this real estate concept allowed me to manifest my ability to give back to the community. And so one of those areas that we focus on today is providing clean, affordable housing to the communities we serve. And to me, that was special because I could be involved in the community. I knew I could make a difference. I knew there were parts of the communities that were underserved and that needed better attention to detail. And that's what our company does on that side with the 333 concept that I helped co-found in 2013.
Oh, perfect. No, that's really interesting. I mean, again, I think, part of our messaging and what I love about it is, we want to inspire people to be able to make these important decisions, to be inspired to make some of these decisions and not wait until you're older, because of course, as we know, we don't have the compounding interest effect. If we wait too long, we
Yeah.
could take full advantage of that while we're younger. And again, to be inspired to look at other different opportunities and to learn what those opportunities are and what they entail. I really love that. And so, that leads me to ask you, so, as you are moving along and we're trucking and you have your family and, you grow in your beautiful family that you have,
Thank you.
you started you had an inspiration to figure out to give back, which became, as we both know, the wealth building project, which we're both excited about and excited to take to another level. But talk to us a little bit about how that came about. That you're like, hey, one day you're sitting around, you're figuring out, hey, I've got like this, I learned this, I'm doing this. I've actually done a pretty good job in some areas, thankfully.
Yeah.
I want to give back. Talk to us a little bit about the genesis, the origin of the wealth building project and how you got started with that concept.
Well, I appreciate it. Well, first of all, thanks to you and your leadership and being able to take the wealth building project as a leader of the wealth building project to the level that it deserves. Because at the end of the day, without a leader like you, it's not possible, Markel. So the impetus, and I'll be candid with you when I say it, and I appreciate you more than you imagine. At the end of the day, it's really my looking back at my younger self to say, what could I have done perhaps differently, or what would be a better scenario if I had this concept, or I had maybe a mentorship program that was available to me when I was 12 years old, 13 years old, 15 years old, even just as I was getting out of college, or even if I decided or I wasn't fortunate enough to be able to go to college, would there be a system? Would there be a program? Would there be an educational concept that could be available to me? And the Wealth Building Project, I believe, from my original kind of vision of that program, was to be able to provide a really an alternative school system, one that kind of bucks the old trendy school system where people can get involved in a program where they can train themselves or retrain themselves, using what we call on our three pillars, sales, wisdom, personal development, financial literacy, leadership training, community development, community involvement, if you will. All of the pillars that we talk about, we've got main ones and we've got ones that are expanding even as we speak, because the concept in and of itself is growing as more ideas come. But I think ultimately what it is it's an opportunity for me to look at my younger self and be able to hopefully harness that community, that younger community, starting with the younger community rather, but then have it kind of expand, so to speak, to their households. So their mom and their dad, their brother or their sister, so others take notice of this opportunity where people can take better control of their lives, or that they can learn skills and they can feel good about themselves. They can be, as I like to say, dignified, as so to speak. But the other thing I talked about is we're building wealth roundedness. We're building, truly from the inside out, a stronger human being who's going to be more equipped not only to give back to themselves and their family, but their communities that they would serve. I think it's a strengthening process. That's what the Wealth Building Project is. And I think, with you again as the leader, and with others that you're bringing in leadership roles and spreading the word, this Renaissance project, we'll call it, I think it's very special.
Yeah,
It's very special.
I appreciate you saying that. Thank you very much. And it's so much fun. I know when you approach me, probably a couple of years ago, we first started talking about the Wealth Building Project, and you had a couple different iterations of it, and I've done some podcast episodes and things like that in the past. But if we look at the last spring, and knowing that with what our partners at the Play for Peace initiative that we're doing, and the annual event that they were involved in, and the town hall that they came about, that I have an opportunity to speak at, and I feel like, I know now, like you've been thinking about me, trying to, where do I fit in this whole thing, and encouraging me to, to be able to do this. And then it clicked one day. I think once we were on stage and I was talking to these kids, and we're talking about NIL and the name, image, likeness, for those that have never heard of it, but I'm sure you have, and looking at the student athletes, I absolutely love having that conversation, especially transitioning into the real world, right?
Yeah.
These kids now have an opportunity to make some money in high school
Yeah.
and in
Right.
college. And so,
Right.
the NFL, which before, like, to make any money, you had to play professionally. So you had to, like, how do I navigate the next 10 years of my life so that I can be in position to make some money? Now you
Right.
can be 15, 16, 17
That's
and
right.
make money at, and as well as in college. So so that was tremendous. And I think that for me, this sort of evolution is from what you talked about to the way we look at it today, where this sort of combined experiment, this
That's
combined
right.
exercise that we're involved in, this renaissance that, no, I like to call it that we're evangelizing financial literacy. We're
Yeah.
evangelizing community empowerment and development. We're
Mhm.
evangelizing personal development and
Of course.
all those things we talk about, with all the skills and the sales skills that you can teach. The average American can step up, can work hard, be smart about what they're doing, get educated on some things, and realize that they don't have to be millionaires to
No,
go ahead and find and hire financial people to put themselves into a great position, right?
that's right. That's
So
right.
that's what really excited me. And and we'll get more about some things in other episodes down the line. But one specifically is, we had an opportunity on Friday I wasn't there, but we had an opportunity to put a program together with basketball with some kids up in one of the community centers up in Massachusetts. And we saw some video. And so I got an opportunity to see these kids go from playing basketball, and now they're in the classroom. And our goal, right, we want to teach them through competition and athletics.
Right.
And these were middle school kids, and they were jumping up and down and competing and wanting to know, raise their hand because they got the answer. And one kid who got the answer right was jumping up and down. It made my heart melt. And so it's like, this is why we do what we do. And so I just want to thank you for getting me involved. Thank you for introducing me to Jeff. Thank you for keeping me in mind, knowing the skills that I have and what I bring to the table, because I don't know that I've ever been called do something like until this moment. I'll be honest. I've done, this. I've worked in multiple sales roles. I've been in insurance. I've been in real estate. I've got skills. I love to network, but I don't think I've ever been called to be able to do something like this until now, until 2024. So we are rocking and rolling. We're having a great time. And again, want to appreciate and thank you for that. As we land a plane here, is there anything else you want to let everybody know, just based on some stuff that you're doing? Any closing thoughts for our group as we close it out here today?
Absolutely. So first, what I want to say, it's your calling to do what you're doing. It really is naturally your calling. You're a natural fit for this. I do want to go back to the classroom that you talked about, which I thought the same thing when you said it too, the special feeling you got with that classroom we have. Because as you know, we're doing proof of concept with our wealth education, wealth awareness program in certain school system. And that's going to continue to grow with the technology development we have around some of the programs that we're creating, custom designing. So we talk about the education system. You talk about the competing that these kids have an opportunity to do. Competition is what naturally happens in our society. It's what humanity is about, is competing. And naturally we compare too as well. And unfortunately, sometimes social media gets us stuck in a rut with the comparisons and the competing. So I think ultimately the program that we're trying to do with these kids is for them to adopt the fact that they're going to compete and they're going to compare, and that's going to be the natural course of their life, but they can take control of everything that happens. And I believe that by teaching them their own financial statements, like one of the things that surprised me was when Katie went through the transaction statement for bank accounts, and teaching a transaction to a bank account transaction statement. Anybody should know about their own bank account transaction statement. They should know about balancing their own checkbook, even though a lot of times computer systems could do that. They should know and learn how to do that. So while we teach these 10-year-olds, 7-year-olds, 13-year-olds, all these different age groups, it makes me really proud to know that we've come this far, because ultimately that's really where I was hoping we could start the story, is at least get it in the school systems, get our kids in a position where they can be empowered. So this wealth building project can expand the way it was designed to expand. So I appreciate you, my man. And I appreciate what you're doing. I appreciate the audience that you've built. And I appreciate your call to other leaders to step up and to share their story. Because at the end of the day, this community of mentorship and this community of sharing, motivation, love, inspiration, teaching, so to speak.
Yeah.
Well, not really even so to speak. It's literally that. That's powerful, right? That's powerful. What was the word you used before? The impact. I forgot it already.
Oh, no, sir.
What was it? Come on.
We are chasing impact.
There you go,
We
my
are
man.
chasing impact. And
I love it.
Yeah, it's exciting. I mean, every day we get on these calls, every day we come together as a team. We've got a really good group of folks that are working in conjunction with, again, the Play for Peace initiative. And, there's more content that's coming out regarding that, but our programs are dialed in. Our pilot programs are coming up in Q1 of 2025. We're getting those dialed in. We've got a fundraiser kicking off toward the end of January, just to really bring a lot of awareness to the community, especially in the Boston area for now. And but my goal is I want this in every school, every state, every school system we can possibly get into across the board. This is a big vision, a big mission. And as I said earlier, I'm called to bring it out. We're called to evangelize it. We're going to do everything in our power to change these communities, because these communities, these underserved communities, a lot of times, again, it starts with this education
Yeah,
and more importantly, a financial
absolutely.
education so that we can take advantage of the opportunities given to us. That's how
Absolutely.
we're going to effectively make change. That's going to inspire folks to do more. And then not only that, for these next generations after that, because people are going to be passing down what they learn to their families. That
Yeah,
is my goal. That is my purpose. That's what we're doing. And we're going to get it out and let everybody know that through this channel at the Wealth Building Project podcast. So, Mr. Verri, it is an absolute pleasure, my man. We will do this again soon. Thank
for
you for
sure.
all you do, and we'll talk to you soon.
Love you, my man.
All
Be
right, guys.
well. Okay. Catch
You
up with
got
you.
it. All right, guys.
Bye.
Don't forget to like and subscribe on the channel and follow us on YouTube. Thank you.